Initially, I was dropping hints. I'd share a song or photos on VKontakte.
I don't get it. These female hints, they just don't work at all.
As it turned out, the person had no understanding at all. None of us knows if there was a relationship.
When we got back together the second time, we agreed that we wouldn't ask each other about it.
Did I think about her? Probably yes. I thought about her in the sense that, well, she reminded me. She constantly texted me, insisting we meet up, not letting me forget about her.
We broke up because of me.
It was my first serious relationship. We both wanted to be our true selves, but Misha was very jealous. We started arguing very often, sometimes multiple times a day. It felt like a daily occurrence, so...
Dasha struggled. We argued, my emotions poured out, and I'd forget about it. For Dasha, it was the opposite. She would slowly and gradually bottle everything up, and certain situations would build up inside her without coming out. Misha doesn't recall events from when we were dating, which we refer to as the first season. When we broke up, I only felt resentment. How could you leave me? And then, when you started dating someone else after a pretty short period of time, that felt like betrayal.
For 3 years, everything was good, but at some point, we probably just didn't understand each other.
There was a bit of misunderstanding because after all, we lived in different cities. We couldn't be together every day.
There was supposed to be a wedding. Everything was supposed to be good. But probably we couldn't decide in which city we would live, probably for about 2 years. And all of this kept building up and building up. And somehow over the phone, he said something, I said something, and we just stopped calling, just suddenly stopped communicating.
We didn't talk for 2 years, although every day I would visit her page.
Why did we break up? Because...
There were some issues, unspoken things, some unpleasant situations when we needed to sit down and talk things through, but we just let everything take its course.
For example, if something happened to me, I wouldn't share it with her. If she had questions for me, perhaps I didn't ask, or vice versa. I can't recall now.
Or I didn't want to ask.
Yeah, or you didn't want to talk about it.
We broke up for 2 years. I think those were the most painful 2 years of my life. Initially, I tried dropping hints by posting songs, photos, and similar things on VKontakte.
I don't understand this. These women's hints, they just don't work at all.
It turned out the person didn't understand anything. And that, on the contrary, left me completely stunned. At that moment, I really regretted it. And then, let's say, it turned out that we still agreed to meet once a year, for some unclear reason. To talk and share the negativity we had accumulated during that time and discuss why it happened. Altogether, it eventually built up to the point where I realized I was doing something wrong. At some point, I was so overwhelmed that I really wanted to go, like the girl suggested, to a fortune teller to try to understand what was happening. I desperately longed for validation that my thoughts were correct.
Every day I regretted that we stopped talking. That is, every day I woke up and went to sleep with the thought that the person you love is far away and you don't know what they're doing.
Of course, there were worries. Of course, naturally.
Actually, no. And I even felt kind of, when I broke up with her that same day, I felt more, well, like some shackles had been taken off. Just like that, I was free right away. Everything was great.
It seems to me that every day I lived with the thought that if I had done things differently back then, everything could be different now.
I didn't have a relationship. Instead, I experienced a long period of suffering, grief, and resentment.
A second relationship started, and in the end, well, inevitably, of course, you always compare. You can't say for sure that it's not, but as they say, it's just not the same thing. And the most important thing I realized probably in the end is that I can break up with the person I was with and, for example, not know what's going on in his life. In general, it won't impact me at all.
When we got back together the second time, we agreed that we wouldn't ask each other about this.
That's why neither of us knows if there were any relationships.
We promised each other not to talk about how we lived for those 2 years. Maybe there are some things I don't want to hear. I'm not interested in that.
Me neither.
I recently flew to Cuba without telling Olya beforehand. She got upset and asked why I didn't inform her. I reminded her that we had agreed not to tell each other about such things.
There was one relationship. I'll be honest, for me that relationship was like a lifeline. Just to forget about Misha. But somehow it didn't really help much.
For 2 years, I was in several relationships. It didn't work out, so to speak. Did I think about her? Probably, yes. I remembered her in the sense that, well, she reminded me of herself. She constantly texted, not letting me miss her, always suggesting we meet.
I wasn't jealous, I was just hurt that he was with someone else and not with me.
I was riding my bike, a car hit me, nothing serious. So I fell down and thought, it feels like I'm about to die right now. Fueled by that emotion, I called and said that we definitely wouldn't be talking anymore.
I remember perfectly when you called and said that you got hit by a car, and I responded with such hatred, so what? The person was yelling at me on the phone, telling me not to call or text, but then suddenly everything changed. He accordingly hangs up and I'm like, oh my gosh, he got hit by a car. Maybe he's not okay, maybe he needs urgent help. But at the same time, he was laughing, calling. At that moment, I had a dissonance in my head. Probably the first time I completely let go. I sat down and cried immediately, which is uncommon for me. I realized I truly care about this person. It matters to me what happens to this person next. I changed my mind and called back, telling you that I care about what happens to you and realize I can't go anywhere without you.
Maybe what helped me start the relationship again was that I started to care a little less about her.
You once told me something that struck me deeply, that you realized you could live without me. I was stunned and asked what you meant by that. Well, here we are. And at that moment, I realized that he had let go, that he existed, let's say, as a separate person.
Olya ended up in a bad situation. And all of this was posted online. And I saw it and called. We met, talked, and saw each other.
Then we met again.
Yeah, then we met again.
And then we met again. About 4 months later, we started living together. And when we got back together the second time, it was very easy.
And my friend and I, he knew well. It turns out, well, he was informed about my personal life, so to speak. He says, why? You had a good girl there, such a good one. What are you even doing? Just call her, talk to her. This thought really stuck with me. She answers the phone, sounding annoyed, and asks why I'm calling and what I want. I was taken aback by her tone. She always used to text, call me, let's meet up. And now it's like, are you out of your mind?
I told him, how about you call me in the morning and we'll talk about it. But at the same time, I thought he'd sober up and not call. He eventually called and we met at the cafe. We sat there for a while, we talked. And then, so to speak, I lost a friend and I felt really sad that it happened like that. I said, Misha, let's meet. He came, that was probably about 10 days later.
We saw each other again and realized that we couldn't live without each other.
And I was so happy my dream of getting the person back came true.
Well, since then, how long has it been? A year and a half? How long?
Well, almost.
After a year and a half together and breaking up and getting back together 3 times, I don't think we'll make it. That's enough.
That was when we were burning Dasha's gifts. There are quarries in Zaslav. It was winter, it was already dark. Night, I set it all on fire. It's burning, we're sitting there, I'm feeling bad, I'm grieving, and Nikita plays Stricolo's song Burn, and the photos are burning, there are those lyrics, and I'm just...
I posted a story on Instagram and he didn't know yet that I could see it for the first 12 hours. And I realized that he was watching me. By the way, I had an epic situation. It happened that a very close friend came to see me and I said, well, that's how it is, we broke up. And I was really like that. Unlike Misha, I didn't miss a single tear. And in the end, she's sitting across from me and she starts crying and I'm sitting there with a stone-cold expression like I'm an absolutely emotionless person. I say, please stop. But she's sobbing, asking, how did you break up? How could you? There was a really funny moment. My mom says, so when will there be a second introduction or maybe the first one? What do you do in situations like this? Everyone remembered him and he remembered my parents perfectly well. Well, he only just now finally learned their full names.
We had to explain a bit to those close to us, yes.
There was surprise, of course. Yeah, again?
There were some, for example, my mom had some small suspicions about it. She asked why I was always going to Minsk and coming back late. She just knew that Olya was in Minsk.
Your parents didn't even know about me, about my existence at all. Not the first time, not the second time. And my mom, well, she knew that there was this Misha, that he really touched my heart, really deeply. When he left me the first time, she comforted me, saying I'd find someone else. I told her I didn't want anyone else. When we spoke for the third time, I mentioned Misha and I were talking again. She questioned if I really needed this. Yes, of course, I was afraid that what happened in the first season of our relationship would happen again.
I had absolutely no fear that anything would happen again.
Maybe I did up until the moment when I still saw a stranger who was trying to push me away as much as possible. He wouldn't let me get close to him, which made me incredibly angry. I wanted an honest, open conversation with him, but he refused to communicate with me at all. In the end, when we finally started to really warm up to each other, I guess that's when all the worries and anxieties disappeared. About the fear that it might happen again, there was absolutely no fear. Many people say that you can't step into the same river twice, that relationships are pointless and they'll end the same way. But no, I don't think so.
Stories about the same river and a shell that never falls twice are complete nonsense.
Probably not. Either they've already jumped in head first, or, if anything, this is definitely the last time. But I don't think that will happen. Based on those 2 times, we can already see our mistakes.
The person has a completely different life now. I mean, they've become more open, they've made friends, and they've found a job. He started to realize that, let's say, the world doesn't revolve around just one person. There's a whole different life out there. Because at that time, I guess I saw that I was probably the center of everything.
We're learning to talk together.
We've finally come to the point where we need to talk to each other.
We argue, and not as much as before, but we still argue. But we've started to resolve these situations faster, and now I don't see all our conflicts as if it's the end of the world.
We couldn't have done without that 2-year break.
Maybe we've grown up a little, maybe we've gotten a little bit wiser.
Maybe yes.
Some kind of...
We realized that maybe the things we were stressing about probably aren't the most important things in life.
Everything that interests us, we start discussing. I mean, we don't just let it go on its own.
What happened the second time, that lack of communication, it's gone now.
Now I've grown up. Morally and internally, I reflect on what happened and realize that some things were not entirely appropriate. They were immature, or there was a lot of selfishness. I'm confident about our future together. Are you sure?
I think so.